Greetings and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, all that, right? Wherever you're at right now within the sound of my voice. We continue our travel log, and we are now moving southwest. We're heading into the smallest region we're going to take a look at, South Asia. It's the smallest region, but it has the world's most rapidly growing population. By 2025, it is estimated it's going to have 2 billion people that will inhabit the region. And it's one of both physical and cultural diversity. And the people of this region represent many ethnicities with marked religious and natural differences. Let's take a look at where we're going to be heading and some of the major heads-up terms here. The Mughals, talk about Muslims. Sikhism, this is a religion that fuses Hinduism and Islam. The Dravidians, earliest known people group in the region. The caste order, division of Hindus into 4 major categories, of which the untouchables are at the bottom. Jainism, this is Hindu. It's they believe in nonviolence, of course, towards not only people, but animals and plants. Kashmir, I'm going to spend probably more time on Kashmir than any other issue in this section. So saddle up for that, about knowing that. Mahatma Gandhi, just the opposite. I spend less time on him than probably any living geography, social studies teacher in the world, right? He's known for the nonviolent resistance in India in the 1940s that ostensibly brought an end to the British government occupation in India. And Al Qaeda and the Taliban, both militant Islamic groups. Al Qaeda, more of an international agency. The Taliban, more localized in Afghanistan and Pakistan. More on that later. We will spend some time on that. So in this chapter, we want to investigate the impact of pre-colonial cultures on the region, recognize current political formation due to the colonial past, and understand the conflict in Kashmir. And I don't see myself there. Let me share that with you here. Maybe, yeah, there I am. So let's take a look at this. We've got a set of notes right off the bat here. South Asia, you have the pre-colonial cultures, and you kind of knew we were going to go there, right? Pre-colonial cultures, the Harappan civilization, the Dravidians began irrigating around 3000 BC out of the Indus River Valley. There's really no written heritage. However, we do have archaeologists have found plenty of ruins that they could make some very educated conclusions about. In fact, in this river valley, for you visual types, I want to be all things to all people as much as I can. The Indus River Valley, if you have your textbook, page 312, that's the primary map we're going to be taking a look at, 312. So you'll want to go there. And coming out of the Kashmiri region of Pakistan, emptying down into the Arabian Sea, you can see the Ganges River, or the Indus River, I'm sorry, the Indus River, right? So the first development of people groups probably emerged out of that particular area. Now, Hindus and caste. You have the caste order, right? The caste order, the Aryans actually imposed this. Who are the Aryans? Well, they came out of Central Asia, and they brought myths with them. They brought the Vedas. The Vedas leads to the study of Hinduism, the mystical poems and so forth. You have your priests. The priests, the Brahmins, they're at the top of the social ladder. And then you have your warriors and rulers who are second on the ladder. And then your common merchants and artisans. And at the bottom, your untouchables, right? These are your servants. They are seen as disgusting and revolting. Buddhism and Jainism. Buddhism and Jainism. Buddhism founded in the Ganges River Valley, 500 BC, in response to aspects of Hinduism. And some of you may be asking, well, where is that? Where is the Ganges River? Ganges River is on the opposite side of India, coming out of the Bay of Bengali through Bangladesh and up past Delhi and into northern India at the Ganges River. Buddha was initially a Hindu. He felt that Hinduism was too doctrinaire, right? It needed to be more connected to actually putting religious doctrine to good works. Jainism is equal to, if you heard of Dharma, right? It's again Hindu in origin. It's Hindu in origin. Think when you hear karma, right? You hear that's not good karma, whatever. This comes out of this school of thought. Good works. It's not dependent on divine grace. You can reach your nirvana by being a good person. Many invasions from the northwest into South Asia through the Khyber Pass. Khyber Pass is in the Himalayas, as high of a area as you want to go on the earth. But bad people were able to find not all bad people, just people seeking a better life, I suppose, and better climates and as well. But many invasions came about through the Khyber Pass. Khyber Pass, interesting area in the Himalayas, and it is on your maps. Look at Pakistan, and it's just northwest of Pakistani capital of Islamabad. Now you can see that there. It has in some light print. Okay, the Khyber Pass. Mountain isolation and island openness. Afghanistan became a mountain refuge for the ethnic groups. For example, the Pashtuns, right? The Pashtuns, they are the largest ethnic group in Afghanistan. They're Muslim, and they use those mountains in the south. The Indo-Aryan Buddhists of Ceylon, this is modern-day Sri Lanka. They developed a civilization based on rice. Sri Lanka. I can't remember if I talked about this already. Easy to spot, right off the kind of the tip of the peninsula of India. Modern day Sri Lanka developed a civilization there based on rice. Muslims gradually controlled ocean trade routes around the Maldives Islands. The Maldives have become solidly Muslim. And again, the Maldives are interesting in that the Maldives are, it's even hard to see here. They're off the Arabian Sea tip of the peninsula. You can see the Maldives. And the Maldives, kind of worried about them. The tsunami, what I mentioned last time, we talked about the tsunami, 2004, the day after Christmas, immersed some of some of those islands completely, and in other ones, about half of them have been submerged. And I guess a lot of our concerns are if there's another such a calamity, seismic activity in the waterways there, they may cease to exist. So just a kind of a little FYI there about the Maldives Islands. So they have become solidly Muslim. And again, you kind of knew by this point in the course, if you have no background on world history, you probably knew we're going to get to the, colonial occupations, right? So what were the colonial impacts? What were the colonial impacts? Well, when the Dutch forced the British out of the East Indies, and we talk about the East Indies, we're looking at some of the areas we looked at in the last chapter: Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines. When the Dutch forced the British out of those areas, the British switched to India, thus ousting the Portuguese, who were, I don't know how extensive of an occupation it was, not like it would get with the British, but the Portuguese were kind of mining around the area. So the British East India Company, the British East India Company, they took ports and you can look at your map of South Asia. That's easy to see. You don't need me to point anything out there, but you could see some of the major cities there: Mumbai and Kolkata, and they built one also at Chennai too. Kind of it was modern day Madras, roll your R there. And they built one there too, and they were basically trading posts, right? The British built these trading posts with, the populated Kolkata in the area of Bengal, being probably the leading port. So the British Indian Empire. So how does this take shape? The British Indian Empire. 1857, some folks are tired of the British occupation. This leads to the First Independence War. And it was really a major revolt of Indian sepoy troops. And as a result, the British take full control in order to put down the uprising. So what were the effects of this? Well, the region entered into the global economy in the late 1800s with export of Indian cotton, and this sets off negative trade imbalances. They were basically spending more on their imports than they were on their exports. So the British imperial rule greatly impacted the geography of the peninsula as well, altering landscape for usage. And primarily that there was building railroads. After the Sepoy rebellion, right? A rebellion was on the front burners of the British government, the British Raj, as the Indians called it, on their the back burners of their front burners of their minds. So they began to build railroad systems to be able to keep an eye on things faster, and also to, in case there were any uprisings, to move troops to and fro quickly and speedily. So kind of tears up the terrain. Set of notes here, Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is on page 312, the top left-hand corner, right? And here's the deal here. The British created it in the late 1800s as a buffer against Russian expansion. And the new country brought together many fragmented groups. Opium replaced wheat, all right, as the major fund crop. And that was good, right, for the local groups, but it leaves the city dwellers hungry, right? Because you're not paying as much attention to the foodstuffs, right? So in that regard, that was not good. Paths to independence, right? British Raj, British government occupying India. The origins of India and Pakistan. After World War I, Mahatma Gandhi begins a policy of nonviolent resistance in seeking independence, right? Brings the country to a standstill. Brings the country to a standstill. And now we get to, probably arguably my favorite topic of this section. And before we get to the notes, I just want to do more of a lengthier FYI about Kashmir. I want to give you the FYI, then the material first, help you to understand the notes. So in 1947, right, the British are leaving, right? Mahatma Gandhi has brought them to their knees. So on Britain's way out, and in fact, turn to, I want you to keep an eye on this. You can see Pakistan. We'll take a look at Pakistan here, or Kashmir, with a larger map on page 312. You can see Kashmir at the border of China, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's right up in that particular area, right? Kashmir. And then that's the broader view of it. And if you want to turn over to, I believe it's page 3, I'm going to say it's 305 maybe here. What do I have here? 305, yep. Go back to 305. And you can see the inset map of Kashmir. That will be very helpful as I talk about this. So on the way out, Britain divides India into two independent nations, Pakistan and India. The former, Pakistan, is primarily Muslim. The latter, Kashmir, is primarily Hindu. Kashmir becomes an emerging conflict, right? And during the days of British India, the population of Jammu and Kashmir, you see that the areas of Jammu and Kashmir were, divided up as well. Kashmir, and it was primarily Muslim. Set this up again. It's primarily Muslim, and it was partitioned. It was partitioned. It was governed. It was actually governed by a Hindu, and it was partitioned. The ruler could opt to become either in Pakistan or India, and he chose India. So fighting breaks out after a line of demarcation was established, and you could see the line of demarcation in your inset map, and that brings about a ceasefire or a line of control. The line of control is what you want to look for there. So southern Kashmir, where most of the state's population resided, remained a part of India, and the northern Kashmir, filled with more rugged terrain, became a part of Pakistan. So 3 wars later, nothing has been solved, right? So in 1998, both sides developed nuclear weapons and make matters worse. In 2001, armed Islamist insurgents attacked Kashmir. They also attacked lawmaking bodies in India's capital, New Delhi, seeking to assassinate Indian politicians. Two assailants, the assailants were two jihadi Muslim groups that were claiming Pakistanis backing, which Pakistani obviously denied. There's also the possibility that the two groups had ties to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda civilians died in multiple terror operations, including a Jewish center, the Taj Mahal Hotel in New Delhi, and restaurants that Westerners tended to frequent. Then you have, if you take a look at that map there, or in the map on page 312, you'll see China borders the region too. China has claims in the northern mountains that originated in the 1950s. So Pakistan has built a friendship with China when they ceded part of their territory to China. So the easternmost portion of Kashmir, which is kind of an uninhabited mountainous area, is also claimed by the Chinese as well. In the 1950s, reminding China of its claim, that's a good way to say it, the Chinese built a road through it, right? And this is kind of related to, and I wanted to get to, remember I told you I wanted to get to this. I didn't have enough time or room. The road and the Belt and Road Initiative of China. It's basically long-term geopolitical effort by China to gain and keep commercial and military advantages across Asian lands and waters. So the Chinese have built a road through that territory, and this has led to border tensions. You had a Chinese-Indian War in 1962 as a result. You had other standoffs in 2014, 2017, and 2020. The 2020 skirmish, the Chinese deployed thousands of troops around Indian-occupied Kashmir. Overall, Indian soldiers have died. About 20 of them have died in the skirmishes. India's also suffered from millions of infections due to COVID-19. And since the virus started and they were able to master the pandemic, the Chinese have enjoyed comparably better economic growth than the rest of the world, right? So there's a lot of suspicion and bitterness that has become a reality within India, as well as others too. So let's take a look at the notes. And Kashmir, its location makes it tense, right? Makes it tense and concerning its neighbors. The British sold it in 1947 to a Hindu, and the Kashmiris opted to go with India as a result of a Pakistani invasion. Subsequently, Pakistan holds about 1/3 of that area, and you can see that again by that inset map, the line of demarcation. Issues with its inhabitants, right? India's installation of government was secular, and Pakistan's is Muslim. Fighting with Muslim insurgents has set up a line of control. Kashmiris are tired. They want independence from both. Most Pakistanis see Kashmir as more important than Afghanistan. I know during the middle of the war on terror, right, weeding out, fighting Afghanistan and the militants there, we were constantly desiring to get Pakistan more involved in that than they were, but they're more concerned about Kashmir, right? Ceylon becomes Sri Lanka. Again, just a reminder, Sri Lanka on your map on page 312, just off the, not too far off the tip of the peninsula, Sri Lanka. Ceylon becomes Sri Lanka. You had ethnic differences there, right, that were coming to the surface. Buddhists of the Sinhalese incorporated a new nationalism, thereby gaining them, independence. And then Pakistan and Islamic terrorism. Pakistan and Islamic terrorism. Again, that 312 will go back there, and you can see Pakistan. And on September 11th, 2001, Al-Qaeda launched attacks against the United States from camps inside Afghanistan. The United States and Pakistan became allies due to the close proximity of Al-Qaeda and their Taliban sponsors in Afghanistan. So as a result, the U.S. forgave most of Pakistan's debt and lifted sanctions for building nuclear weapons, right? I mean, this is politics. It doesn't sound good, but you do what you do. Politics is a messy game, right? There's no straight lines to it, especially international politics. So to avoid offending India, their enemies, the U.S. lifted nuclear test sanctions against that country too, right? And how that's developing. Taliban and Al-Qaeda combatants fled to Western Pakistan. Why would they do that? Well, it's an area that receives poor governance to begin with. Under U.S. pressure, the Pakistani government conducts military operations against terror groups in that region. Although because of the geography, and this is another big reason why they are fleeing to those areas, this is generally really difficult to mount any efficient surveillance campaigns. So because of the U.S.'s unpopularity in Pakistan, the U.S. military employs drones, right, against enemy combatants. However, many Pakistanis object to that too, because there's the propensity with drones, right, to kill innocent civilians. And then, in 2011, Osama bin Laden was slain by U.S. Navy SEALs. When found, he was living near a military institution, leading the United States intelligence community to speculate about his ties to the Pakistani military and their intelligence services. So our alliance with the Pakistanis has always been kind of questionable, how strong it really is. So the U.S. began supporting the Taliban inside Afghanistan due to their war with ISIS, right? Again, politics, international politics. It's kind of like the ends justifies the means. The Taliban continue to operate in Afghanistan and Pakistan under the leadership of bin Laden's successor. So Afghanistan. Afghanistan is one of the world's poorest countries. It's landlocked with a lack of resources, poor infrastructure, and an extreme lack of trade. Afghanistan's primary export is I mentioned earlier, is opium. Its strategic location is kind of along these caravan routes and oil fields of considerable size. And so, it's made the area an interest to world powers. So, with U.S. support, the rebels has successfully drove Soviet occupation out in the 1980s. The conflict was followed by a civil war in Afghanistan, which alienated it from the outside world. The militant Islamic Taliban gained power during that time period, and shielded Afghan Al Qaeda militants while they trained it, and it continues to do so even as I speak. So the planned attacks on the United States in 9/11 then thus emanated from Afghanistan. Al Qaeda was driven into hiding, and the Taliban from power during those post 9/11 attacks on the U.S. So reconstruction efforts of the country is ongoing, as is the insurgency of the Taliban. And while negotiating a peace settlement with the Taliban, the United States decided to remove its troops, right? Including a botched evacuation that left the Taliban with the major air base and probably lots of crucial intelligence. And there you have it. Take a look at let's take a look at the graphic organizer. Recap this, and I got South Asia. I got a little different chart this time, a cause and effect chart. In the middle, you can see South Asia. So at the top were the causes to it, right? You can see their Harappan civilization, the Aryans bringing in Hinduism through the Vedas, and a caste order system, which is still around today. Buddhism and Jainism emerge from Hinduism, right? Buddhism was a response to Hinduism, and Jainism's Hindian origin. You had invasions to the Khyber Pass and your colonial impacts. British East India Company set up shop in and then they're kicked out in forced out, right, in 1847 by the British Indian Empire is forced out by Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent resistance. Then the effects of all this. The region enters the global economy through cotton. British imperial rule augments the geography of India via the railroads to keep down rebellions. The British create Afghanistan, right, as a buffer to the Russians. It's very fragmented. Opium becomes a fun crop in the 90s, right? Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent protests. British grant independence. And it's split up, India and Pakistan. Kashmir gets divided up between both. And, India becomes economically self-sufficient. And then let's get into the situation with Afghanistan and Pakistan becoming hiding places and bases for terror groups. And then Pakistan and Islamic terrorism, right? Taliban still operates in Pakistan and Afghanistan as we speak. What's coming up? I think pretty much standard fare stuff here. We got Thursday night in the news due 11:59. Look at all your options there. Initial discussion posts, right? 2 response posts due by Saturday night, and then Monday. Chapter 7, right? Chapter 7 quiz on, there we go, Chapter 7 quiz. And then we will turn our way westward. We'll be again looking at North Africa and Southwest Asia. Okay. All right. So you guys have a good week. Questions, comments, don't hesitate to contact me. Again, I always invite you to do that by phone during the evenings. Look at my office hours. And so until next time, be good, do well, and we'll see. Bye-bye.